Welcome to the Kaur Show. This is episode 38. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Ranjit Kaur from the UK. I'm the founder of Seek Colouring Books, and I really appreciate your time listening to our Kaur Show. So today is the World Down Syndrome Day, and basically you can wear mismatched socks to show your support as well. So like my children will wear different types of socks, but they do that generally anyway. But if you wanted to show your support and maybe take a picture and do the hashtag as well, that would be great. Today on the show, we'll be talking to Harpreet Kaur, who is an award-winning blogger and mummy to two precious little Singhs, Arjun and Saajan. Saajan happens to have Down syndrome, and Harpreet will be sharing the highs and the lows of their journey into the unknown. So today's topic is living with Down syndrome. And this topic is either something you know about or you don't. And many of us who do not know, I think it's really important that we raise this awareness, we find out more about this subject, and then we can get a better understanding from an experienced mother. So let's welcome our guest to the show and hear more. Hello, Harpreet, how are you?
Hi, Ranjit Benji. I'm good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to come and speak about Down syndrome. It's obviously a big part of our life, so thank you. I'm well.
No, thank you so much. I'm really glad you've come here. It's been a long time coming, but I've been waiting for this day, especially for this day, so that we could resonate more, for this awareness to be shown and shared with others as well. So thank you so much. And if you can, Harpreet, for our audience, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, that'd be great.
So, as you mentioned, I have two sons, Arjun Singh and Saajan Singh. I first started my blog back in 2014 when I faced postnatal depression on the birth of Arjun. I was really excited to have a baby, and when he was born, I didn't instantly feel that connection that everybody described, or like you see in glossy magazines. I didn't really experience those feelings, and I kind of started my blog because of that. And very quickly, I had lots and lots of messages from other South Asian women saying, "Oh my goodness, we feel exactly the same, but we thought it was just us." So I kind of continued with that, and then we fell pregnant with our second. Really excited for Arjun to become a big brother, for our family to grow. And I gave birth in December 2016. And when Saajan was born, I felt all those emotions that I thought I'd feel with, my first child. I felt that instant connection. I felt so much love, so much joy. And then 9 hours later, we found out that he has Down syndrome. And then it, set us off onto a downward spiral because we were ignorant. We had no idea, what that meant for us. And we kind of feared the worst. And the narrative that was used to deliver the news to us was quite a negative kind of narrative. And also the way in which our loved ones reacted, which was varied, really had a massive part, especially for me, to play in how I kind of accepted and processed the news. So that's us in a nutshell. So although many people assume that my blog was started to raise awareness of Down syndrome, it actually started a lot longer before that. And the actual original cause was postnatal depression, and it's gone on to become a blog about raising awareness of Down syndrome.
I know you've spoken a little bit about Saajan with myself the other day as well. And when he was born. And I think it's amazing how you can, you didn't know about what was going to come your way and how you guys dealt with the situation. Yeah. So it's great if you guys could tell us, our audience, about your experience. So were you didn't know about this during your pregnancy? You were just told you were going to have a boy and it was normal. I mean, how does the testing go?
So first of all, the word normal isn't what we'd use. It's typical. The word is typical. It's fine. It's, a lot of people, not sure about terminology. So it's typically developing child. Because really, what is normal, right? So when we were pregnant, we had all the regular tests that people do, the nuchal screening and things like that. And they all came back low chance of having a child with Down syndrome. I had a 1 in 100,000 chance. And I had loads of scans during my pregnancy because I had a high risk of preeclampsia. So I had I think it was between 8 to 12 scans through my whole pregnancy. And, you know, there were different sonographers as well. So it wasn't like I could say, oh, it's the fault of the sonographer, because I had many tests done and it just wasn't detected. I wasn't meant to know. So yeah, we didn't know while we were pregnant that we were going to have a child with Down syndrome. In short,
I like how Kamaljeet's messaged in the comments. She says normal is not to be used. Typical is a very good word to use, actually. Yeah. I've not heard that before. So like for people like myself who don't know, this is why we should do and talk about this, because then it raises awareness for all other people as well. And Roop Singh has said, I'm happy to join this morning. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, so do you ever think like how it would be if you did know? Is it better knowing or not knowing? Like, have you ever thought how it would be? I'm a prepared person. I'm very like organized, but with pregnancies and with birth, these cannot be organized. Like these are out of our hands.
Yeah, there's some things that are just out of our hands that are, you know, you've got to leave to Maharaj and Mother Nature. And I guess if we had known, I probably would have been quite stressed through my pregnancy, because I would have had a longer period of the unknown. But at the same time, I could have used that time to connect with other families and reach out to you know, relevant people that could perhaps support. But do I wish I had known? No, I think it worked out exactly the way it was meant to work out. And this is the way it was meant to be.
So you didn't find out at all in your pregnancy about Down syndrome. And so when you did find out that, you know, 9 hours later, you said, did you reach out to anyone or for guidance, or did the hospital give you consultancy, or did they help you in any way, or they just thought?
It was when we first found out, we were handed a leaflet and told, you know, your child has Down syndrome and all the rest of it. And to be fair, they did tell us about a local charity where parents can get together who have children with Down syndrome. But in that moment, it was such a huge shock. I didn't want to physically go and sit with anyone. I didn't really want that to be my life at that time. And so what I did do, what my husband did was, he went into I don't even know he knew my password. He went into the blog and he posted and basically told the world that our son has Down syndrome. And off the back of that, there were loads of mums who were further along the journey that actually reached out and said, you know, we've got you, you're going to be okay. Kamaljeet Benji was one of them. And it was really nice actually to connect with Kamaljeet, because she was also of the same background, same faith. So there was that connection as well. But it was those mothers that really took my hand and pulled me out of that dark hole. No kind of, you know, professional or doctor, unless they have a child with Down syndrome, I don't think you can comment or give an account of what it's like. You don't know firsthand. So
I totally agree with you. It's very difficult, because unless you don't know, you just don't know. I have a Christian friend who they knew they were going to have a Down syndrome child, and when they did, they embraced it.
A child with Down syndrome, not a Down syndrome child.
Yes. See, this is what a child with Down syndrome. This is what Kamalji was teaching me yesterday. She was like, "There's terminologies of how we say things." And I was like, "This is what we need to learn." And she was giving me these examples of a one-legged man, and it was great to hear what she was teaching me. But when I was learning of this journey, I was just very like, I remember asking so many questions, like, so, you know, but my friend's son Kenton, he was going through lots of surgeries at the time, so I couldn't, and they were talking very deep into the surgery. I was just like, oh, I just can't talk about this. It's just too difficult knowing a child is going through this. Like, and also, let me just tell you the comments that we've got quickly. Otherwise, we get so bombarded with comments and we don't read them along. So Benita Patel has said, "You are amazing, Harps. Love you so much for everything you do to raise awareness." That is so true. You raise awareness. You're very brave, and not brave in the sense like to any other way, but I think it's amazing when people are able to raise awareness as opposed to shy away. But it's all about everyone having their own journey and how they're trying to keep everything together. It's very hard to talk about our journeys out aloud, I feel. Kiran has said, I also had a negative Downs screen and found after giving birth. Don't know if it was better to know or not.
So Kiran, did you find, does that mean you knew, did you have a high chance of having a baby with Down syndrome? Or I'm not, if you could clarify that. So
so she said, I also had a negative Down screen and then found out after giving birth. So maybe she'll reply. Okay, but she says, I don't know. So she's had
to what we had basically. You were told that it was low risk and you found out. I agree with Kiran. I don't know. I mean, I can only comment on our journey. I don't know. A lot of it would have depended on how it was delivered, the news, what terminology was used and things like that. So it's difficult to know what, whether I have preferred to have known or not known. Gurmeet Gaur, I've seen, has asked about the difference in terminology. This is very, very important, and it's really quite, it can be quite offensive actually. So Down syndrome is a label basically, right? It's the condition. It's just a condition that he has. It's a part of Saajan. It isn't who Saajan is. So we always use person first language. We never say, a Down syndrome child or a Down syndrome person. The same way you wouldn't say, as Gamaldeep would explain, you wouldn't say there's a one-legged man or there's a one-legged woman. You wouldn't say that. Instead, we say there's a child with Down syndrome. Or so there's Saajan Singh who happens to have Down syndrome. So it's always person first, and then the condition that they might have. And also terminology around chance versus risk. So I've explained this in one of my latest reels, that it isn't about, using the word risk. It sort of sounds alarm bells in somebody's mind. It insinuates danger. You see red, you just see scary. You want to run away from that. There's nothing scary about Saajan. He is the most purest soul that I have in my life. He radiates such a beautiful energy. I feel more connected to Maharaj when I'm with Saajan, if I'm completely honest with you. So I think the choice of words is so important, and it's so important that we think about what we're saying and what the meaning of, that small little word, it could make or break a parent, or, it could really influence their decision in that moment.
No, I totally agree. And it's amazing how, you're talking about the terminology. Gamaljeet has also mentioned in the comments, this is what I mean, I have to say the comments as we go along, otherwise there's so many. Terminology is so, she says, terminology is so important. Where's the thing? It is not a risk and there is a chance. Sahed Singh is not a risk to anyone. Also, you can say typically developing child as opposed to normal or not so. So that covers exactly what you've said before about the risk and the chance. Kirana said, no, my screen was low risk. So yes, so she said her screening was low risk.
Yeah.
Jeeti Palmer has asked she's mentioned what can make a child with Down syndrome rather than a Down syndrome child. Thank you, Harps, for always raising awareness and educating us. And Kiran has said, I always say my son happens to have Down syndrome. I also identify with what you're saying. So it's like, I was saying this to somebody the other day about epilepsy. Yeah. And how I know about epilepsy is because I've had a sister who had epilepsy and then she passed away from epilepsy. And that's not the same case for everybody. And there's all different cases, different stages as well. And so I know a lot about this topic, but that doesn't mean I know a lot about Down syndrome. So this is
exactly.
why it's good to,
Yeah,
and when people talk about, oh, so-and-so had a fit, I remember when she'd go crazy if anyone said she had a fit. So there's that terminology there, whereas they don't actually mean it, they just don't know. So we
yeah.
used to have to say,
And
you just have to tell them.
exactly. And a lot of the time, there's no malice involved. There's no ill intent involved, meant. But it's just important to be open to being educated. Exactly like you're saying about the epilepsy. It's just being open to actually thinking. It's in general in life. This is for everybody, not just people that don't have a child with an additional needs. But the power of our words is so strong. But often we don't think about how we're saying them or what we're saying. It's like the double-edged sword. So it's important. Even for I'm learning every day. I'm still learning. I'm not free from that.
No, this is why we're here. We all want to know your story, and learn more, because that's how we're going to learn. You know, when Saajan was born, so you said that you had varied support from families or their reactions. So
Mm.
what were the families and friends like with you? I mean,
Um,
were they very supportive, or?
I've got to say, like, there's nobody that wasn't supportive. My family and Breatham's family and even our extended families have been incredible. They've been amazing. There were over 500 parts that went on for Sergeant when he was born around the world. My mum and my mussies were just on it. And I asked them, I said, what are you praying for? Are you praying that he gets cured? Because he hasn't got a disease. He doesn't need to be cured. And they're like, no, we're just praying that he has, a smooth life. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I can handle that. I'm okay with that. It's, if you're praying for a cure, like, you're going to be highly disappointed because that's not going to, there is no cure because it's not a disease. So what I meant by that was the way in which people reacted. So one of my good friends was like, "Oh, congratulations, Hearts! I'm so happy for you. I can't wait to meet him." And I text her back saying he's got Down syndrome, and she's like, "Yeah, I know. Like, so what?" And I was like, "Okay, wow." So I was constantly scanning people's reactions. Other friends might have been like, "I'm so sorry, I don't know what to say," and I'd be like, "Okay, like." Okay, now I feel like rubbish again because why are you sorry? Like, what is it that's so bad? And I look at him and I just think, you're just an innocent little baby. Like, why is this extra chromosome such a huge thing? Why is, it was very confusing, but I was very much gauging people's reactions. And I think that's where I try and raise a lot of the awareness. It's around things like that because people don't know what to say. They don't mean to not be supportive or to say the wrong thing. Sometimes people don't know what to say. So it's just about educating them and giving them pointers on what they could perhaps say, which is helpful.
Definitely. Did you ever like, what was your visit to the Gurdwara like when you first went? Did you ever think like, oh, other people that aren't in your friends or family cycle, how will they look at me, or how will they, be now that they know? Did you ever feel like judged?
I was really scared. I'm not going to lie. My mum and dad have a very heavy involvement in Singhs Southall, and they're there daily, multiple times a day. And so we've been brought up. The Gurdwara is very much a part of our day to day, and that the Gurdwara has been my saving grace always. Whenever I'm happy, whenever I'm sad, that is the place that I turn to. And I was terrified. I was just like, how is he ever going to be accepted in the Gurdwara? And for a long time, I shied away from going. And it was my dad that said to me, Guru Nanak Dev Ji said, we are all God's children. Like, we are all equal, whatever. We are all God's children. And it was him reminding me of that gave me the confidence to say, no, he's got every right to be in the Gurdwara just as anybody else has. And bearing in mind, when he was a baby, you couldn't really tell because he was just little. Nobody was really going to see him. So in the beginning, I used to go with my dad and Breatham or my sisters. I never went alone. I always had someone with me. That wasn't only because I was worried about the reaction at the Gurdwara. It was more, I was going through my own depression anyway, so I didn't have the confidence But after that, I think my dad constantly reminding me, and that's one of the reasons we wrote Guru Nanak Dev Ji, my Nanaji and me as well, because that alludes to that message in the book of, we're all Maharaj's children. I slowly started to realize that, hold on a second, if I don't take Saajan there and normalize it, how can I then expect them to embrace him and to accept him? He's going to go there and he's very much going to be a part of, the Sangat, whether they like it or not, he's going to be there. And the committee have been really good with helping us to raise awareness there as well. They've displayed posters, campaign posters in the past. And, they've asked, what can we do to help? Because I said, sometimes I still feel uncomfortable. Like, I know he would love to do seva, like giving out tissues or something, but I don't know if he might be a bit clumsy with it. I don't know how he might be. And that's an insecurity of mine. And it's something I've got to work on. But having my dad with me at the Gurdwara, I don't know why, it just gives me that. He just reminds me of Maharaj's message. So he reminds me of the bigger picture, not just, the people there. But yeah, we've got the responsibility to integrate our children into society. And what society does with that is up to them. But we've still got to plow on and do what we can for our children.
Definitely. And maybe some more messages. So just go down here, sorry. What a difference. I so identified what you're saying. Oh, so Rup Singh has said, I've worked with children with DS. They are very switched on and know what they want. And Kamalji said, I say the same to Kiran. So Kiran earlier said, I always say my son happens to have Down syndrome. I so identify what you're saying. And then Rup Singh's also said, these individuals with DS are more full of life and character than the normal people. And the Shir Singh hasn't mentioned a comment, but he's put a comment in. So yeah, that's a great comment. The ones I don't know what to say, or an error in typing. So when Saajan came along, obviously Arjun was very young at the time. Was he 3?
He was 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
So did you explain to him straight away, or did you just leave him be because he wouldn't know any different at 2.5?
I think we left it. He was at that immediate time, he was probably the only one that was just besotted by his brother. He was just, there was chaos in the room, when we found out, and he's just there stroking his face saying, Mummy, he's so cute, I love him so much. And I didn't want to break that innocence. He's 2.5 and he's still very little himself. And the fact that he's got a new brother, it was all a lot for him. I don't know when we actually started talking about, Arjun also had to witness Saajan going through open heart surgery as well. So that was quite a big thing for him. And for a long time, Arjun thought Down syndrome meant the scar on Saajan's chest. And it took us ages to explain to him, no, that's heart surgery, Arjun. That's not Down syndrome. And Holly, as Saajan's getting older and the gap is widening, we do open up that, that conversation with Arjun. And if he's ever feeling frustrated or, a little while ago, he was really upset. He said, Mummy, I wish he could play with me the way, his best friend Jorvan's sister plays with Jorvan. And, I said, Arjun, I understand, that you're feeling a little bit frustrated today, but what about all the, how much fun you have playing this game and this game? And, I listen to him, I hear him, I don't shut him down because his feelings are valid too. And, he adores his brother. He is solidly behind, by his side. He celebrates him the hardest, but at the same time, there are challenges. But then some of the challenges they have are typical sibling challenges as well. Like, Mummy, it's not fair, he always gets his way. Or Mummy, they fight like typical siblings. They love like typical siblings. They're just like typical siblings, to be quite honest. It's just Arjun understands that it takes Saajan a little bit longer to learn. But that is what Down syndrome is. It takes them a little bit longer to learn. That's it.
Yeah. The extra. I'm just going to read out a message from Kamalji, who had told me that she would like me to say this out. She's changed it a few times, but this is the version I have left now. So she's mentioned Vaiguji. So this is Kamaljeet Kaur, who is a friend of mine, has sent me a beautiful message regarding her son Sahed Singh, who has Down syndrome. I hope I'm saying it right. Yeah. She said, Vaiguji, if I were asked to define motherhood, I would have defined it as love in its purest form, unconditional love. This quote resonates with me so much, and more so when people say to me, you're so strong. I don't know how you do it, and I could never do it. Such statements imply that their love is or may be conditional, which is a contradiction to the definition of motherhood. We have our ups and downs, highs and lows. Who knows what the future holds? Does anyone? One thing I know that will always remain a constant is our faith and our love for Guruji. We can be tired, weary, emotional distraught, but after spending time alone with God, we find that He injects into our bodies energy, power, and strength. So she's included some Bani, and the Bani says, Jojo Ditta Kasam Soi Sukh Paya. Whatever the Lord and Master gives him, with that he is content. Nanak jise diyal bujai hukum mit. O Nanak, one who is blessed with the kindness of the Lord, our friend, realizes the hukum of his command. And then she's going to put kindly, if I have offended anyone with thoughts, feelings, or my words, then I do ask for forgiveness, Vaheguru. Kamaljeet Kaur is one of the kindest people. She doesn't offend many or any at all. And she has, like we were saying earlier, she has a great way with words. Isn't that right?
She's brilliant. And I think she's articulated it so well. When people say, you're so strong, I couldn't do it, it's actually really patronizing. But it's also, well, you would do it. If you had a child, that's your flesh and blood. That's what, what you've been gifted, you would do it. It's nothing to do with you're so strong. You would absolutely do it. That's your child. And also, accepting Guru's hukum. Like if you have faith in Maharaj, you have that unconditionally. There's no conditions on that. You accept what comes with it. And, Kamaljeet and I have really great conversations about this, that, yeah, there's ups and downs, like there is with any, child. It's not just, I have a typically developing child and I have a child with Down syndrome. And I can tell you, today, I've probably had more challenges with Arjun than I have with Saajan to date. I mean, I know Arjun's got a couple of years on him, but it's a misconception. And I think when people, as Kamaljeet's just said, that a mother's love is unconditional. It's nothing about being strong. It is just a part of, being a mum.
Yeah, we get that when we get told, when we, people say, oh, you've got 3 children, don't know how you can do it. It's just, you're just brave. And it's like, well, what am I going to do? It's not a choice here. You kind of get on with things.
Yeah.
It's hard work. Let's not sugarcoat it. It's busy. It's hard work, but you work with it, right? Because you get lots of comments, but it's good. We embrace that. We try and answer back in such a way that they don't make those comments again. These are typical Indians. So before I read any more comments, back to Saajan. So does he attend school? I'm not going to say normal school or mainstream, but I'm not going to do that.
Mainstream is fine to use. So he's in a mainstream school. He is in a mainstream nursery. So he was in a private nursery from the age of 1. We wanted to give him the same chances and opportunities as Arjun, the same life experiences as Arjun. There's just because he's got, it's a little bit more difficult for him, it doesn't mean he shouldn't have those same opportunities, and we're not going to have, the same expectations of him to try his best. So he was in private nursery, and then he started mainstream nursery this year, and we just had his 6-month review, and it couldn't have gone better. There wasn't a single thing they said about Saajan that made me think, oh my gosh, no, obviously he's behind, but They said he has an incredibly positive attitude to learning. He's kind. He does good sharing. He's popular. He's learning so much so fast. And I firmly believe that for him at this age, what happens in the future, we take it a year at a time. But for him at this age, being around typically developing children is not only beneficial for him, but it's also beneficial for the children, typically developing children, to embrace difference and normalize it, to be around it.
Definitely, I agree with you there. I remember my children had a little boy in their class who also had Down syndrome, and I'd ask them, like, so are you playing with them? They'd just say hello to them, to this little boy, but they wouldn't actually play with him because he was quite aggressive, actually. So they'd say, like, he gets really angry with us, and so teacher tells us that we have to be really nice to him and be patient and calm, but they've never said anything out the norm. So it's been amazing, because that's the teachers showing the support, that this is how we are all one. We all sit on the floor together. We all do our work together. And I think it's really important with the children. And we went once to a party where it was a friend's party. So their son had Down syndrome, and it was a party with all Down syndrome. And I just walked in, and I straight away walked back out with my kids, and I said, okay, we are going to, because some children were in wheelchairs, and they're all different levels. So I had absolutely no idea. And I was like, okay, so I had to tell my children, there is no staring, there is no judgment. But mine were very young at the time, so it was really difficult for them because they didn't understand. They thought running around was normal, but not everyone can run around like that so quickly. So then I had to quickly give them the pep talk of, we're going to be here and we're going to accept everybody the same. And I really tried my hardest, but they were just too young to understand. But they did a lot of observing that day because they've not been around this environment. So I thought maybe we should go to more of these. Obviously now it's locked down, but we should definitely go to more of these where children can learn from a younger age, as opposed to when they're adults and parents teach them. I think children should be teaching us more as well. So do you know about the different levels, or?
No, you either have Down syndrome or you don't. It's okay. Not, there's no mild or moderate or, severe. It's like, so for example, Preetham's really good at economics, but he's not so good at, I don't know, party planning. I'm really good at party planning, but I'm hopeless at economics. We're both typically developing the same way. A child with Down syndrome, Saajan Singh might be really good at, I don't know, being able to count, and Saj Singh might be really good at, physical activity. They're just different. It's not mild or moderate, but it's just different. Your strengths and weaknesses, just like a typically developing child, it's just different. What you were saying about your children and attending a party for a child who had Down syndrome, I think it's really important to be inclusive. So with me, from when Arjun was little, and I guess it was influenced by having a child with Down syndrome, I make sure that I actually invite the whole class to Arjun's birthday parties, and same with Saajan, because I want it to be inclusive. I know there are children in Arjun's class that don't perhaps play with everybody. They might be shy. There's children in Arjun's class that have learning difficulties. They're all invited to our house, and we make it a very inclusive environment. I also want Arjun to be exposed. Saajan is Arjun's brother, so he knows no different. But it's still so important for Arjun to see other, to be exposed and to be accepting and to celebrate difference across the board, be it color, be it ability, whatever it is. If your child is staring, it's okay to stare. It's okay in terms of being curious. Obviously, you don't let them just, sort of stand there staring. You ask them the question, like, have you noticed, ask them what they're looking for. What is it they're thinking? Open up that dialogue with your children. Open up those conversations, because that is the opportunity and the window to share education. Because in that moment, otherwise they're processing it themselves. They're coming up with their own, and most of the time children actually don't pass judgment. With Saajan, I asked the school this as well. I said, do they find it a bit strange? And they're like, no, because he's just Saajan. They don't have labels. They don't understand labels. They just know that all of them are different, and that's okay. Like, you know, when they wanna have a laugh, Saajan's the one that pretends to be the teacher in the class, and all the kids come and sit on the floor, and he's like the joker of the class. And you know, they've all got different personalities, and I think it's really important. This isn't only to do with you know, disability. This is also to do with, I've seen it before with one of Arjun's best friends. You know, he has a patka, and I remember his mum was mentioning that she had a child saying, "Oh, like what is that like about him?" And the mum was kind of trying to shush her child away, but really the mum should have opened up the conversation then, and had the conversation with her child. I understand, you know, sometimes you might feel like, oh my God, this is embarrassing, be quiet. Children are innocent, children are inquisitive. It's how you learn, it's how they learn. It's important for them to be, but it's important for us as the adults to educate them and share that learning. And if you don't know the answers, speak to someone that might do.
Definitely. No, I agree. We went swimming before the lockdown, and there was a little girl there who had like a tube to her nose, but going down, you couldn't see her swimming costume on. And she didn't have one arm as well. And so my children didn't hesitate. They just said, "Mummy, what's wrong with her?" And I was like, oh, I says, let's ask her, because I didn't even know. And the parent was sat there, and I thought, oh, hopefully the parent will say, you know, let's have a conversation, as opposed to talking behind anyone's back, like, you know, rather than saying shush, shush, don't ask, don't question. I genuinely didn't know. So I just said, oh, let's talk to her. Let's see how her day is, how she's been, how school was. And then that normalized it for them. So whenever they saw her, they didn't see her as this one-armed little girl. They just saw her as whatever her name was. So it is up to
yeah. I think that's really good. Yeah. So you went and you spoke about just general life things, the same things that your kids were experiencing to school, and you know, and showing that actually she does the same things. It's just, you know, she has an extra tube. One of my nieces asked me, actually, she said, "Mussy, why does Saajan, you know, when he was really little, why is his tongue always out?" And I said, "I'm really glad you asked me that." I said, "It's because he has low muscle tone, so he can't control it the same way that you can." And she was like, "Oh, I didn't know that." And I said, "Yeah, that's what it is." Bless her, she got an award at school actually for raising awareness of children with additional needs, because she's always been very kind and inquisitive about it. So I think it is really important to normalize and show and say, yeah, you know what, we're all different, and it's okay to be different.
Definitely. And it's up to us parents.
Yeah.
It's up to us parents to educate those children to approach it in a different way. And because she only had one arm, they actually then wanted to know how she would swim.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, let's go see how she would swim if she doesn't mind. So you have to ask her, because it's her privacy. And it was great to have that convo, but it was more than anything, I was so glad her mum was approachable. Because the worst would be if they look at you like, oh, do you really have to ask? Or if they're not approachable, then there's that barrier of, then, well, how do I teach my children? And then how do you teach another child that's going to be thinking or speaking out?
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that, you know, different parents will react differently. I'd say most people are open to sharing and to educating, but, you know, if a child's having a meltdown and you maybe try and talk to the parents, then that might not be the greatest time. But I think generally people are, you know, very open to sharing. I know, so Harpreet, that's on the call, she shared an experience with me, you know, when they went on holiday and they saw a family and the child had Down syndrome, and, you know, she opened up a conversation with the mother, and, you know, that would have meant a lot to that mother, just to, you know, people aren't kind of staring away just because a child's got Down syndrome. No, they're just a regular family. It's good to have these conversations and to just normalize it. Yeah, you know, the part where you spoke about her having a missing part of her arm, that would have been small in comparison to the rest of the conversation you had, which is also showing your children that actually it's just a part of her. It's not who she is. So I think it's really important. So I think, yeah, doing things like that is really important.
Yeah, definitely. It sets the example once we know. Read some more comments before they get bombarded again. So I think we've gotten to maybe Gamaljeet, where she said, it's the same with having a child with special needs. You just get on with it. Yes, you do. And then she's also said for school, they call it mainstream setting or a specialist setting, specialist provision. And then I think you've mentioned, is it this Harpreet you're talking about? Harpreet Bora? Yeah, Harp, thanks for everything that you do. Gurmeet said, that's a great idea. It's the best way to expose kids early on, and they don't have that judgment, the party bit I think she's referring to, like, you know, getting everyone together with the same, you know, so children don't have any difference or know any better, actually. Delvinder Kaur has said, there can be a difference in children with severity of medical conditions as with children with other special needs. So do you know more about that one?
So I think, obviously, so I'm talking specifically with Down syndrome in terms of the learning difficulty side. It's different for every child. One child might be stronger in something, another child might be stronger in something else. Medical conditions, yep. So with Saajan, he had to have open heart surgery. There is a 50% chance of having for your child to have a heart defect if they have Down syndrome. We were in that 50%. So yeah, I guess different different disabilities and things have
different levels,
different medical conditions as well.
Yeah. So when my sister had epilepsy, it was it wasn't visible. You couldn't tell. So if she ever got on a bus and the bus driver would be like, so you've got a disabled pass, but you don't look disabled. And she'd be like, seriously? But then one time when she was really going through a downer of how she was feeling, and I says, you need to come to where I'm living in Holland. I need to show you someone who's also got epilepsy. And she had no idea. And so she came over and I said, this guy's wheelchair, bedbound. He's in his 40s. He's a Singh and he's having seizures, .com, all the time. Now think about how it's all very different. Everyone has it differently. But if you don't know anyone and you're just in your little bubble, you won't know more. So it's about, you know, educating in different ways. And after that, she was really grateful for her position because at least she could go on a bus and walk around and be independent.
Yeah.
As some aren't. They're very dependent. But you know, it's every case is different. So we've also got Jiti, who said, huge respect to your niece about asking the question about Saajan's tongue, as I'm sure lots of adults and children wonder, but they are too shy or scared to ask. Your niece now has the ability to educate others from the learning you shared with her. That is true. It's very true. In fact, I didn't even know. I thought it was just one of those things, you know, a sign, if anything. I never thought to even ask, actually. But
I'll probably do a reel on that one as well, actually, because it is something that people are scared to ask, or, you know, you don't want to offend. And I get that. Like, if I was, you know, if she was on the other foot, I'd probably not want to ask the question either. It's to do with low muscle tone. A lot of the physical side of, you know, the delay in development in children with Down syndrome is because of the low muscle tone. So that's why. But yeah, Jiti, thank you. It's true. We try and do the same with Arjun. You know, he hasn't asked about Saajan's tongue, so we haven't said it to him. We don't point things out about Saajan to Arjun. We allow Arjun to start the narrative. And same with my nieces and nephews. We allow them to ask us, and then we answer, rather than pointing out things that they wouldn't have noticed themselves.
Yeah, definitely. There's also Kiran, who said Ikraj also has a heart condition which has been surgically repaired. That worried me more than him having Down syndrome. It is very worrying when you go through the surgery and not knowing. It's again the not knowing.
Exactly. That for us as well, Kiran, was the turning point. So Saajan was 6 months old, and you know, I was still sort of wallowing in self-pity about, oh, what is our life going to be like? You know, is it going to be like in a vegetative state forever, or is he going to be a dependent forever? I was too busy worrying about myself, and then we got this horrible news that he'd need open heart surgery, and I was just like, Maharaj, I don't care about anything, just save my child. And you know, when you're in at the hospital undergoing open heart surgery, there are children that didn't make it while we were there, and it was horrible. It was hard, and that was the turning point. And I thank Maharaj for that now, because I needed that in order to turn things around. And that might not have been something that had happened had we not gone through that. So I trust that whatever happens, the Almighty knows the way it's meant to be and what's right for us. And that's
Yes. Guru Sahib has all the plans. We go with the flow. And with the open heart surgery, when Kenton had his, my friends, the Christian friends, that when they had their son who had an open heart surgery, and I had just had my third child, and I really wanted to see her because she'd been in hospital for a while now in Birmingham. So we went to the hospital, and she just said, oh, look, and, you know, when I said before, but they got so detailed about internals, I was just like, this is, oh, look, he's had a surgery. And it was just literally cut. And I was just like, I don't deal with blood very well. I had to walk out the room and I just started bursting out crying. And they were like, what's wrong with you? Can't you see that this is normal? And I was thinking, no, it is. It probably is. It was just so overwhelming to see a child go through this. For any mother, because I just thought straight away, if my child was on the bed, I wouldn't be able to handle it. I would, you deal with it, but I'm just not very good with blood. So we all have
to deal with you just, I didn't think I'd be able to, I'd be able to get through it. But just like being a parent in general, you just do something inside you. You haven't got a choice. What choice do you have? Like what could you do that would mean you couldn't face the reality? It's just one of those things. It feels like a very distant memory now, to be quite honest. I mean, we might have to go through it again in his adult life, we've been told, because he's got a little tear on the other side now. But I just try and shut it out, because I just feel like the thought of it makes me feel sick. So I'd rather not. When we get to it, we will deal with it, and that's it. And that's something that me.
It's definitely, for me, it's just the blood part. When I see, like, even when my children have nosebleeds, I'm just like, I can't handle this. What's going on? Like, it's just the blood part for me. It's just the sight of blood makes me go squeamish. And yes, we don't have a choice. We deal with whatever comes our way. And that's the power of what Guru Sahib has given us, strength to deal with this. Any situation, actually. Some more comments. Gamanji says, a reel about typical features of Down syndrome would be amazing, Harps. So yeah, I did a reel yesterday for Harps, Gamanji, and so maybe if you want to do one about features of Down syndrome,
because it's something that is a bit more easier for people to absorb, I think.
Reels is amazing. It's just you can do little snippets of 15 seconds, and if it raises awareness, that'd be amazing. And that's the power of those reels, especially definitely for now. Benita said there's no choice. Yes, you're absolutely right. There is no choice. Gamanjit said Guruji gives us himmat. There are so benevolent in their love for us. Sorry, another message came through, so that went up somewhere. It's true. We do accept hukum. We do have himmat, and we have bharosa as well. We always, we just carry on. So it is great. But I'm being mindful of time. We have 10 more minutes, and there are a few more questions I'd like to ask you if I can. So what advice would you give someone who is expecting and they have found out that, their unborn child has Down syndrome?
I would say take time to process it. Don't feel like you've got to do something instantly. Ride the emotions. It's a shock. It's not what you were expecting, and that's okay. It's okay to be sad, mad, confused, because it's the unknown. We fear the unknown. We are scared of what we don't know. Go and follow Instagram accounts of parents that have children with Down syndrome. That is the greatest way for you to open your eyes and see what life may be like. Don't listen to the doctors, because they don't know unless they've got a child with Down syndrome. Get in touch with local charities. For us, we had a charity called Sparkles that was local to us. They completely flipped the narrative for us. We love going to Sparkles. It's like going to a baby group. We meet other families. Sergeants developed so much from it. And just take your time. don't panic. It's going to be okay. It's going to be more than okay. It's going to be a different journey, but it's going to be an incredibly beautiful one. It's no less beautiful than becoming a mother to a typically developing child. If anything, every milestone they reach and everything they learn is that much more rewarding, because you know how much time and energy it's taken for them to learn it.
Another if anybody wants to know more information or help with struggling, if you just Google Down Syndrome Association, so there's a Downs syndrome.org.uk where you can get more information as well from the UK. I know in Australia you can Google this as well, and you'll find some local to where you are. So Harpreet, if somebody wanted to get in contact with you to ask more of a personal question, how would they contact you? Where could they reach you?
They can drop me a DM on Instagram. That's normally the easiest way if it's a quick message. Emails tend to get a little bit lost because that's more for the business side. But if you've got any questions, I'm always open to answering. No question is a wrong question. But if there is anything, I'm happy to answer.
So where would they be able to find you? What's your handle?
Baby Brain Memoirs.
So if you want to find Harpreet on Instagram, it's Baby Brain Memoirs. I just type in baby and it comes up straight away now. Yeah. I also wanted to touch upon two other things that you do, because you're a busy lady, I know. Firstly, about your book. So could you talk us through a little bit about your book and what you've launched recently?
So we've recently published the children's book Guru Nanak Dev Ji, My Nana Ji and Me, which is a kids' book aimed at ages 4 onwards, about Guru Nanak Dev Ji's simple message, but it also incorporates acceptance and celebrating difference through Saajan, which has done incredibly well. The book I wasn't expecting to do as well as it was. So thank you to everyone that supported that. I'm also in the process of writing my memoir, so just documenting the journey from before I got married to, the journey of acceptance with Saajan. Just because I think if you are a new mum and you've just received any, unexpected life event, it's all in one place. You can pick it up and just read through it, and you'll see that I went through everything you probably are going through now. So it's to take a woman or a man or whoever on that journey with them. So that's the second book that's currently in the pipeline.
Awesome. And you also have a Baby Brain Lounge as well. How did this start?
Yeah, so I've got the Tea and Talk Lounge, which is a virtual space for women to come together. I was hosting annual in-person events, which were really, really well received. And there I was talking about part of my journey, and then I'd have a guest speaker, and then we'd have some fun activities. And obviously, because of lockdown, we weren't able to do that. So I thought it would be a really nice way for people that are unable, that still require that support, but that aren't able to get it, to be able to come together virtually. So it's really great for people that are geographically a little bit further away as well. And there, it's a space for women to come together, to have a laugh, to share our worries and our woes, and to just ride through life together.
That's great, thank you. A comment from Kiran was positive about Down syndrome. PADS is also a good website.
And Wouldn't Change a Thing organisation is also really good. There's quite a few which I can signpost. There's loads of information out there on Down syndrome. I think social media is a really powerful platform. Yeah, definitely. That's where I had my that's where I built my own support network.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's very powerful in the way we use it. And Harpreet, I'm really thankful that you've come to the Kaur Show and shared your wonderful journey with us all. Your time is precious, and I'm so happy you've done this, because even I needed to learn a lot more. And I think I probably have so many more questions to ask you as well, which I will do later. But is there any last speeches or comments you would like to make?
No, just thank you so much for having me, for being open to being educated. Benita, thank you. I love you girls so much. Um, and yeah, just thank you for being open and for learning about Down syndrome. And thank you to all the incredible people that follow our journey and help us to raise awareness and have carried me through some of my darkest days.
No, definitely. And if you can, please wear different type of socks today so that you could be supporting the awareness as well. Take a picture and share on social media if you can. Thank you everyone today. We'll see you again next week. If you've got any comments or a specific topic that you would like covered, please send us an email to hello@thekaurshow.com. And if you would like to see any of our previous shows, please visit our website, thekaurshow.com. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.